Shimmerling by Andrea Skyberg. On a sparkling summer's day, deep in the forest, near a cluster of proud oak trees, a feather descended from the heavens above into the earth below. Out sprouted the shimmerling. It shot up with magnificent speed. The buds on its wings blossomed sparkling feathers that lifted themselves to the spirits in the sky. Its large, thick roots hugged the soil, digging into dirt rich with the souls of ancestral trees. The making of Shimmerling. For my last few books, I've worked collaboratively with students to make the artwork for the books. And I decided to do the same with Shimmerling. I worked with two schools, Westside Academy and Bethune Academy. The project was funded by Arts at Large. When I went to the schools, I asked students to draw me an image of the Shimmerling. I read the story, they listened, they pictured the Shimmerling in their mind, and this is what they came up with. Before we got too far into the art making, I wanted to work with the students on writing. I wanted them to experience writing and journaling to help heal emotions. So we talked a lot about times where they felt left out, possibly when somebody teased them, and they wrote about it. And this writing helped them to heal those emotions. And the reason I felt this was an important aspect of the residency was because the Shimmerling also deals with issues of self-acceptance. After our writing workshop, we began to design the feathers for the Shimmerling costume. Before we actually got into the art making, we took some time to do guided meditations. And the idea was to clear our minds so that these great ideas could come up to the surface. Students then began drawing. They got to draw two different things, a bird and a tree. They had worksheets to look at that kind of gave them an idea of what different trees and birds looked like, but they had to come up with their own interpretation of the bird and tree. Behind the bird and tree, they added designs to fill the space of the feather. The feathers were created out of chipboard and metal foil, and each student received one after their drawing was done. We taped it behind their paper, and they traced over their drawing, pushing hard down into the metal. After they were done with the first round, they took the metal off, and they traced over it again and again until it deepened the grooves into the metal. They did it with pencils and with pens so that they could really see their image. I added a patina to them, and then the students colored in the middle ground with different colored markers. They were told to use at least 5 different colors so that these would be very bright and colorful feathers. They had one tree and one bird. I worked with students that were first grade all the way up to 8th grade at the two different schools. And you can see they were doing an excellent job from the youngest all the way up to the oldest. Their designs were so beautiful and so intricate. Each one was so different than the next. The students also got to come up with a special name for their tree and a name for their bird. And they got to give it a special power. A power like love or trust or creativity. When the students were finished coloring them, I spray painted them to protect them and keep their color vibrant. Then I began to design the Shimmerling. I had all these beautiful feathers, and the trick was finding out how to make the Shimmerling look. So there was a number of sketches that I did. I also worked with my husband who did a number of illustrations, kind of to get an idea of what this character is going to look like. Once I had a good idea in mind, I started working with foam and fabric and building up wings for this Shimmerling. I also sculpted the face of the Shimmerling out of Sculpey clay, and I placed the feathers that the students did around the face and glued some what turned out to be bark made out of tin foil and tulle to create this very interesting looking skin. I burned up my hands quite a bit doing this because it was a lot of gluing, but it was worth it because the trunk of the tree was really full and all the feathers looked beautiful on the Shimmerling. Once the Shimmerling was done, I worked on the secondary characters, the trees, which started off as pure fabric and then morphed into clay faces, kind of old man looking, and got a little bit younger, colorful, and you can see the progression of faces. But I finally settled on a face that was very similar to the Shimmerling, a nice, simple, kind of baby-looking face. I sculpted the trees out of chicken wire and also tinfoil and masking tape, and then I covered them with a rag rug fabric. Their tops were made out of dyed wool. Here you can see the size of the trees compared to the Shimmerling. Then I made the birds. The birds were a little similar to the tree. I started with chicken wire and fabric, and then I used clay to mold their heads and painted their heads. I attached them to their bodies, and then I used sticks, kind of like puppets, to have them fly around. Their wings were movable, their legs were movable, so I could get different looks, directions for each bird. And we also shot them with the Shimmerling. My husband, Michael Greer, shot all the photography for the book. He helped set up the sets, and he also took care of all the layout. He composited images together, because you'll see, in this shot, for instance, I'm holding up the little growth of the Shimmerling, and in this shot, I'm hiding behind the Shimmerling, actually holding up its wings. And Michael took and pin-tooled out all of that so that you're left with this beautiful image. Or this beautiful image where the Shimmerling is told, "Shine on, shine on." Shimmerling by Andrea Skyberg. For more information about this book or other residencies, please visit andreaskyberg.com.